Okay, good morning. We've got Karl Cowling here, and Karl, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, which force you were with, when you moved on from that force, and any hurdles in doing that.
Good morning. Yeah, I joined the MDP back in 1985. Served at various stations, dog handlers, firearms, that sort of stuff. Was lucky enough to go abroad. Went to Afghanistan. Worked with NYPD in New York for a while, all as a policeman. And I stepped out 5 years ago. I
Okay,
did a sideways and moved into a civilian role.
okay. And how did you find that moving sideways then, Karl? It's quite unique what you did, and you and I had a conversation before we started recording. So how was that in terms of how you felt in getting up your warrant card and all that kind of stuff?
The actual process was surprisingly easy. It
Right.
really was easy. It was a case after I went through the process and they offered me the job. It was literally a case of I'm going in a month, and HR within the MOD did everything for me. So
Okay.
the process was easy. You need to look if you're going to consider that is that I went effectively on promotion, which means they have to pay you more than the going rate for the civil service that you're going at,
Oh, I love
because
it.
you can't be promoted and lose money.
Yeah, I like
So
that.
effectively, I jumped from being a PC
Yeah.
to where a C2 grade, which I believe is somewhere between inspector and chief inspector.
Okay.
But they cannot pay me. They cannot pay me less because the civil service wages were less than the
Yeah.
MOD police.
Yeah.
So my wages are actually as an area manager rather than what I actually do, because so that works quite nicely. But the process itself was almost seamless.
Oh, that's good. It's good to have a seamless process because we haven't had many so far. And
No, I have a colleague.
yeah,
Yeah, I have a colleague that does exactly the same thing, and I'll tell you who he is off air.
yeah,
He did retire from NDP and
yeah,
came across to what I do now. But people should be aware that there were issues if you join your NDP and then go back into the MOD. There is some financial penalty. I'm not sure what that is, because if you can't draw the pension
yeah,
and MOD, well, what
yeah.
the ins and outs of that are, I don't know.
Oh, okay, that's useful to know. I might be able to get in contact with your colleague. Um, just the experience and how you felt then, Carl, because it's quite unique what you did. But the experience of being in a police uniform one day with all the powers and privileges that go with being the office of constable, and then the next day you're a C2. I mean, how did that feel for you?
Naked. Naked is basically the best description. I was missing something in my wallet that I'd carried for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
It was almost like stepping out of a family. That
Okay.
might sound a bit sort of naff, but it was true. It
No,
was
no, no,
very
no, no.
not to have the uniform hanging up in the
Yeah, certainly not naff,
yeah. So
Carl.
that's what it was. It took a long.
Yeah. Okay, so you've been in the
It
civil.
did take a quite a while.
Okay, and you've been in the civil service now as a C2 for 5 years. I'm assuming you're still C2 unless you've been promoted again since then. So what have you been doing? What you can tell us on there, what you've been doing as a C2 or above?
For those of you that have maybe worked in the Reading area MDP stations,
Yeah.
I'm the chap that speaks to you to give you security clearance and does your interview.
Ah, right. So are you working with DVA then?
They're called UKSV these days.
Okay then.
It stands for you security vet.
Right. Okay. Okay. We're getting a little bit of internet interference here. I'm not sure if it's you or me or my end. If it keeps on happening, I'll move in and get a stronger signal in my house. Any impact on family then, Karl, in terms of changing the role from policing to the C2 role?
Wife doesn't worry when you walk out the door anymore. Is probably nicest way of putting it. But my heart has changed. I work from home.
Right.
I'm my boss every 3 months, and I run my own week. There is no shifts. It's beautiful.
Okay, that's good. That's much better. Much better way of it. So no night shifts anymore, which is obviously a good thing.
Oh. Only, I run my own week. You are treated as a senior manager,
Yeah.
with all the responsibilities and the trust that comes with it.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And in terms of personal development then, Karl, I mean, have you had to do new training from that side, or have you found your skills have transferred across quite readily?
Most of my colleagues, of which there's about 200, most from a pacing, investigative, nosy neighbour background. That's
Yeah.
what you. Sorry, that was the phone ringing itself. So you need to have those skills, otherwise you can't join. There is a process. There is a process to join, which is exam based, which is nothing too arduous. I can give you some tips on that. But otherwise, the process, they send you away for their own training course, which is only 2 weeks.
Right.
But what they are looking at is what you have up here that you've gained in the last however many years wearing the uniform. That's what.
All right. Okay. That sounds good.
So yeah, I will say that it is a markedly different interview process to what you and I would know, because whereas in the law you've got a very narrow area of investigation that you can speak about.
Yeah.
In my job, I have total autonomy. I can ask what. That's refreshing, but different.
Yeah. I understand. Having been through the vetting process quite a few times in my career, I know exactly what you're saying in terms of I've been on the opposite side. I'm probably the person you're asking the questions of, so I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Interesting you work from home then, Karl. So in terms of social media, what if any social media do you do? And I'm conscious of the background that you're working in within the Ministry of Defence here as well. I suspect not a lot, but I've got to ask the question anyway.
Yes, I have got social media. You will have to hunt for me.
Yeah.
It gives no details, obviously.
Yeah.
It does show that I was once. There's a couple of pictures that show that I was once a police officer, but I'm no longer.
All right. Okay.
But that's about it. Certainly, there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not.
There's nothing that refers to my current.
Yeah. I was going to say, so it's nothing that you need in terms of doing what you currently do, because again, it's quite unique what you currently do.
Yeah. No, it's not relevant to what I do at all.
Okay. Always. And in terms of, here's an interesting one, then, Karl, because this is one that many police officers and police staff stumble on, is your CV. So when you went for that role 5 years ago, I mean, what advice did you get about your CV? Because it's a different thing when you're looking for an external role.
The process has changed slightly now, as things advance and develop. Back then, really all they were interested in was what experience and what investigation, what interview experience I had. That's what they were looking at in the first instance. Part of the recruitment was very, very similar to those of us who might have gone through promotion, where you sit in a room and you actively deal with someone and you're assessed by the invisible assessor in the corner. So that was part of the recruiting as well. But as a CV, they just needed to know that you had those skills and came from that background. So not a lot, really.
Oh, okay. So in a typical job search type CV, you didn't have to do a 2-pager and get advice from anybody then, from the sound of it.
No, there was no sort of competency-based questions or anything like that. One bit of good advice I can give officers if they're looking to do what I did, on the civil service website, where it gives all the vacancies, which anyone can apply for from within the MDP.
Yeah.
Is the top tip with this: if you go for one of the jobs and they allow you to do the competency questions on there, if you fail it, you cannot apply for that particular role. Right. So the top tip is look what the grade you're looking for,
Yeah.
and try it on all the others that you're really interested in. And that way you get a spectrum of the questions they're going to ask you.
Okay, good tip. I like that one, Carl. We always like top tips on you. That's the whole point of doing the interview. So, like you're saying, I'm sure one or two
Yeah.
will be interested in trying to follow you as well. In terms of competencies, then, Carl, I recognise that what you went through as a recruit and as a cop in quite a unique world where you worked, and I know exactly where you work. What skills and competencies do you think that you've taken forward then into your new role? I think you've given some hints already.
Certainly the interviewing. You've got to be able to take and just be a person. You yourself have been through the process. It's not an interrogation. It is not a suspect interview. And that was tough for me, and I believe tough probably for my clients over the first 3 months of this role. They were dealt with quite harshly because that's done it for 30 years. But knowing able to sit and chat to people, that's what I took with me. I was a DPO for the last period of my service, so I was speaking to people in their own houses, all about their lives, their problems, which really did sort of transfer across to what I'm doing now because it's such a personal interview.
Yeah. So in the main, from what you're saying, it's communication skills, and if I'm picking this up correct, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Being able to see an opportunity and open the door, that's what they're really interested in. Anybody can answer a questionnaire. It's got to be able to identify, there's a door, I'll open it and see what's inside. And people have many doors, which is what we do.
Yeah, I like that. So in your view then, Karl, so many cops who are thinking of leaving and trying to think about a new career would quite readily fit into doing what you do?
Yeah, now saying that, I have been part of the recruitment process for my job as well, taking part in the interviews and actually being the stooge in their assessment interviews, which is good fun. I was quite surprised. I was in there with quite a few Home Office police officers, detectives, detective sergeants, and so on and so forth. Who, to be honest, I'm just meaning they were rubbish. And they didn't get in. They could not make that transportation from a suspect hard interview to actually quite a nice touchy-feely interview. They couldn't do it, and they didn't in. And when we have people from sorry, we've got this lag.
No, keep going. No, you keep going. Can you just develop that a bit more for us? That's really interesting.
Yeah, we've not all of my colleagues are police officers, ex-police officers. We've got a number that are ex-customs, ex-benefit fraud office. It's those sort of people. It's an investigative skill is what they want. They're not looking for any qualifications. I never did an interviewing course in the MDP. It's about being able to speak to those people and just being able to identify opportunities. That's all they want. And that takes time to learn. So it isn't just being a police officer doesn't give you the qualification. You have to be good at what you do.
Yeah, I like that.
In their world.
It's interesting, Karl, because some of the other interviews I've talked about, police officers in particular are good at interviewing suspects. They're really good at interviewing witnesses to get the evidence. But I haven't had a conversation in this kind of way. But actually, this is still interviewing, but it's not a witness and it's not a suspect. So it's a different person, and I guess the point you're making is that transition, just interviewing a person, almost informally, but to get some evidence for the qualification they're looking for to be vetted, I guess.
Yeah. It's a soft touch interview. You have to know when to step it up. But initially, it's a chat at the beginning. You're just having a chat. You're just drawing information out. There are no traps set or anything like that. All you're doing is drawing that information out. And that's the sort of person you have to be. If you're not a sort of an affable, approachable person, you would have difficulty doing this job. Do it hardball. You can't because it won't.
No, that's good. What I will do, Karl.
So that is a big change, and people have to accept.
Yeah, what I will do is when we come off air, I'll get the civil service website off you if I may, and then we'll put that. We've got a list of places where it's useful for cops and police staff to look for jobs. So I might put that on there. And again, it's another thing for colleagues to tap into on the website, which would be good.
Serving, when you look at the civil service jobs website, you will see more opportunities than those from outside.
Ah, right, okay.
Because when you put your staff number, so you can see jobs that are within the civil service you can step across to. If they don't fill them, they then step outside to the wider world where there are few of them opportunities. So if people want to do it, start looking before you leave while you still have that civil service staff number, which allows you to view it.
All right, another good bit of information there, Carl. Yeah, look, planning ahead before you kind of move on, whether that's natural retirement or whether that's you want to leave early for whatever reason. And sadly, colleagues are doing that. So it's difficult for them to know that actually inside the civil service itself, there are opportunities.
Absolutely. If I don't know if you've ever scrolled through the website itself, but it covers everything. Absolutely everything. And there are opportunities on there for ex-police officers. I looked at things like the prison complaints department. It's an investigative interview role. Prisoners making complaints, they need someone from outside to go in. It's exactly from our background.
Right.
Couriers around the world. It's from a policing trusted background. It's not all about just sitting in an office somewhere building like we see as the archetypal civil servants. There is so much on there. It's well worth a look.
That's good. Thanks for that, Karl. It's really useful, and we'll make a point of putting that on our website. So that's something that Mark and I hadn't thought of. I know that for a fact. I mean, right at the beginning of the interview, Karl, you made mention of being promoted out of your police role into your new role. So in the consideration of finance, I don't need to know your personal finance, but in the consideration of finance, how much did that influence your kind of decision making about moving on?
The reason I moved on is I did my time out in Afghan, out in a fob, and having seen what I'd seen out there, I came back and I thought, Karl, there is more to life. I was back to my DSO role, which I'd been doing for 9 years, and I had great difficulty in dealing with 1,500 residents, which is dealing with down in Plymouth, and there what they think were big problems was in fact niff-naff and trivia, and I'd seen be dealing with it anymore. I thought, what your problems are not real problems in the grand scheme of things, and I knew I wasn't doing my job properly, so I had to step out.
Yeah, no, it's good. It takes something like you say, to go work outside your comfort zone, to go and stretch yourself, maybe even go into panic areas, and then come back and think, right, there's more to life. So. And again, thanks for your honesty on this, Karl, because it's really useful about decision making, about why do people want to move on. You don't need to do the 30 years or 40 years or whatever it might be. So it's good that you've kind of recognised that, and you seem, from me seeing you here now, very, very happy in doing what you're doing.
Very much so. I'm a lot more relaxed. Going back to what you were saying about the finances. Just to give you I was a PC. When I left, I was a top-rate PC. Yeah. But because, as I explained, the civil service wages are lower than policemen's, I wasn't allowed to become a C2. And C2s, I think, started at £32,000, which was significantly less than what I was getting as a PC. Yeah. So, as a promotion, I was not allowed to lose money. So if people are going to do it, they need to do it once again while they are in the job. Yeah. Otherwise, if they step out, they will be coming in at the bottom rung.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, another top tip, Karl. I'm sure our wisely financiers, who many cops are very good at finance. I'm sure they'll spot that one. But if they watch this video, they'll pick up on it as well. I mean, it doesn't sound like you needed to do many job interviews as such, Karl, but how well prepared were you for your interview for the current role then?
Reasonably. And I would say reasonably, because my job when I'm back then as a DCPO, I was in people's houses every day. I was talking to them and trying to get out information to try and resolve their problems of everything from the next door's cat peeing on the lawn to the person who lives opposite setting fire to their cars. So I was already in that give me information, talk to me. On a softly softly approach. So I didn't know it, but I was being trained to do the job I had now in the last 9 years as a DCPO.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be the answer there.
Oh, okay. I mean, any hints and tips and advice then, Karl, to others that might follow your footsteps and do exactly what you're doing then? Are there any advice you can give to colleagues?
Because the process has changed slightly, and I know from our recruiting and top tip, they are recruiting hugely at the moment, hugely.
Okay.
So start looking now. What was the best advice I could give them, really? Make sure that because they may well now have to evidence that they have recent interviewing investigative experience. That is on the job title now, vacancy. So, you know, if you've been a dog handler for 20 years, you may struggle to prove that. But whether they're asking for proof, I don't know, but it is on the job vacancies now. I did ask when I joined why the turnover was quite high within this role, and I was quite blunt. I did say, is it because it's a crap job? And they said, no, it's a second career. So people are coming in, they're doing 4 or 5 years, top option, and then taking full retirement from whatever. So that's why the turnover is there. But they are recruiting hugely at the moment in areas. The only specification, you have to live and work in the postcodes that you operate for budgetary reasons, because they pay you mileage as well as set you up in an office. That's you have to look at it.
That's good.
But now's the time to join.
Yeah, thanks for that, Karl. Again, I know a lady locally who does exactly what you do, and she keeps us informed about what's going on in that world as well. So absolutely bang on, and it's the time to do it. And I know there's 1 or 2 of our colleagues struggling in terms of meeting physical fitness stuff and all the rest of it. So there are opportunities out there. So why not take them while they're there? So it's a good again, Karl, good top tip from you there. Leaving the police for anybody, no matter what the circumstances are, is always a daunting prospect. And you mentioned that word that you felt naked, but what did you actually feel was the most daunting prospect about taking that decision to hand your warrant card in and move sideways within civil service, but it's still daunting? What was the most daunting piece for you?
That's a difficult question, because there was no songs, there was no bells and whistles when I left. At the time, I had transferred temporarily to Burfield. I finished on a night shift on a pay in lieu. If you're going to go out on a pay in lieu, and it was a case of going to see the inspector and say, "There's all my stuff," and he said, "Here, thanks very much, off you go," and that was it. So it was really quite sudden. There was no real long build up to it, because the role I'm in was all internally. Because obviously all I was doing was a sidestep. So there was no big build up to it. It just happened. But and I started work straight away. There was no delay, so I didn't really have time to sit and mull and think, actually I'm a nobody now. You know, I already had a job to go to, and I literally finished on one day and started and went to my training course about 2 days later. I would say that would be my top tip. Because I think if there'd been a long gap of suddenly feeling naked, what am I going to do? I'm waiting for something. I could understand that would people down and quite quick, because you're no longer part of a team. There's no responsibility, and I think people would struggle with that. I was lucky; I didn't have that. But I think if you seamlessly, or almost seamlessly, I think you do yourself a big favour.
Okay, so to keep the gap as short as possible, especially if you've got a new role to go into, and then you don't think sat there, you know, why have I done this? Why did I, you know, wish I hadn't done it? That's those negative thoughts that kicking in as well there.
Yeah, I fully understand that people may want to say, look, I'm out of the MDP. Do you know what? I'm going to have a bloody good holiday first off. I'm going to take a month, 6 weeks off. I can understand that. But I think very quickly you're going to suddenly feel, actually, I am this fish out of water now. I'm not part of the big machine. As much as everyone moans about the machine, you're not part of it anymore. So, yeah, that would be my advice. Keep the gap short.
Okay. My next question is very interesting here, Karl, because of your uniqueness of what you do. What ongoing engagement do you have with former colleagues, if any?
Okay. Former colleagues as in MDP or police forces in general?
Both. Both.
Me personally, I speak to one of my former colleagues quite regularly, who was a chief inspector where you used to be. Right. I speak to one of the inspector's wives, who used to be, her husband was at that place near Reading.
Yeah.
So I've got engagement there, but my role doesn't require me to have a face-to-face professional interface with MDP, because I'm not near anywhere they're better. But I do have a regular contact with Thames Valley Police, having to speak to them, and especially CNC's training college is a stone's throw from me, and I go there regularly to do their interviews.
Oh, okay.
So I still step back into a...
Yeah, so you're up the A34 then? Are you based up the A34 or off the A34?
Yes.
All right, you're not far from me then.
Yes, just north of Oxford.
Oh, okay, well, we're not far from each other then. I didn't realise we were that close. I had it in my head that you were in Plymouth still, but good to know that we're not that far away, which is great. In terms of, not that you need to do it, because it sounds like you're in a settled role here, Karl, but in terms of unique selling point, if I was interviewing you for a new role, or even a promotion role within where you are now, what would you say would be your unique selling point then?
My unique selling, I now am I completely work on my own. I'm self-sufficient. I make my own decisions. You don't need to micromanage more.
Okay, that's pretty. I like that. That's pretty neat and succinct. But my next one again is probably maybe irrelevant, but in terms of when you looked for this role within the civil service, Karl, what was the most challenging part of the search? I guess is the right question.
Location for me. It was location, because it's obviously we're spread geographically. We have certain hubs where a number of vetting officers work. I was down in Plymouth at the time. My domestic situation changed hugely. Basically, I got divorced and I moved back up here. And I came back up here, funnily enough, and ended up marrying the WPC that was my tutor constable way back in 1985.
Wowee. Yeah, and likelihood I might even know her then.
Probably.
We'll talk off air on that one.
She was based at...
Okay,
yes, we will.
We'll talk off air. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Well, here's an interesting one, Karl. Have you looked at our website yet? Have you looked at Leaving the Police website?
I haven't, no.
That's okay, it's fine. It doesn't matter whether you have or whether you haven't. I just thought I'd ask the question. When you left 5 years ago, conscious that you did a sideways move and everything was kind of lined up ready for you, but what kind of things might you be looking for on a Leaving the Police website in terms of help, guidance, advice? What kind of things would you think should be on there? You don't know what's on there, which is not a bad thing.
That's a good question. I mean, let's face it, we go to work for money, don't we? At the end of the day, I mean, can people? I think, as you alluded to earlier on, most police officers, or certainly many that I know, are very financially savvy.
Yeah.
I think they'd want to know. You know, I'm going to be living off my pension now. What am I getting from you? What's the benefits from a new role? And I think that they need to know that sort of stuff, because at the end of the day, once you step out from that, let's get paid every month.
Yeah.
You're in. All I've got is what's in my pot, and that's it. I don't know is the answer.
Okay.
I really don't know. I had looked because there was a similar sort of thing. Was it Police Oracle?
Yeah, Police
I seem
Oracle,
to remember looking at many. Yeah, similar sort of thing. Did I find it useful back then? I don't think I did.
right.
The Police Oracle back then is a case of if you're an ex-cop, you can apply, from what
Yeah.
I remember, which
Yeah.
wasn't that useful.
It hasn't changed much, to be honest, Karl. Police
You
Oracle,
know.
we're engaged with Red Snapper. That's the guys that own Police Oracle. We are engaged with them. They mainly put out jobs, as you mentioned, for ex-cops. But the bit that's not there is how do I prepare myself for a job then? What's my CV need to look like in terms of structure, content? What do I need to do in terms of interviewing? How do I interview? And you've come across probably lots of that in terms of doing what you do. So what does a good interview look like? What does a bad interview look like? Yeah, and where are those jobs? You know, Red Snapper's got some jobs, but what a lot of people are doing is they're putting cops into silos. Oh, they can only do security. But we know they can do a lot more than security. Security is just one of probably hundreds of jobs that ex-police officers and police staff can do. And that's the idea of the site. We're trying to kind of open people's eyes to be able to see that there's lots of availability there. And, you know, hopefully stay as members throughout that time, even once they find a new job.
Yeah, yeah. One job I did look at that was out with of the civil service, and it's not something I'd ever considered, but it is, from my eyes, it comes. You need a policing nosy background again.
Yeah.
It was auditors in big companies.
Yeah.
Although everyone, I wouldn't want to be an accountant.
Yeah.
But these guys were going around to big stores and making sure everything was right in the right place.
Yeah.
All that sort of a policing background. And I never thought of that, but that's ideal where we come from.
Yeah.
It's being nosy and being accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. And auditing is a big, again, because we don't work in the commercial world, there's lots of it going on out there, and we don't recognise that those skills that we have are so transferable. But again, good bit of information there, Karl, and something for us to kind of remember when we're looking for the job alerts, because we're going to be putting job alerts out for cops as well and for police staff. Near the end of the interview now, Karl, in terms of success for you, what does success look like for you in the future in terms of doing what you do professionally?
I'm one of these people that I'm not interested in the promotion. I have been offered it, which would be a manager managing a team of 12 over an area. I didn't want it. The reason I didn't want it was the same as I never went for promotion in the police.
Yeah.
Is that I like the job that I'm doing. And the more I put on my arm, the more I'm promoted, the further the leash is away from the job that I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy where I am at the moment, because I am my own boss. I'm trusted. I'm at that level where if I want to book a car, I do it.
Yeah.
If I book annual, I do it. I don't have to ask anybody. I just do it. The only downside with stepping across is if I wanted promotion, I would probably be the last to get it. And the reason behind that is I've got here to this level with no management experience.
Yeah.
So if I'm someone who wants to promote, who's come up through the E1s and D grades in the civil service, they've gradually managed more and more people, big star over me, because I've just come in from the side into this grade with no management experience. So I think I would struggle if I went for it.
Right.
I could move up, but I'd be pretty much streamlined in this role in this organisation. I don't think I could step out because I don't have those qualifications.
Yeah. But you seem, as I mentioned very early on there, Karl, but you seem very happy in doing what you're doing, and it's a success for you is doing what you're doing till you want to stop doing it.
It is quite refreshing, because obviously, without saying too much, we have a certain amount. We have a quota to do.
Yeah.
If I was to do those quota and have them done, dusted, typed up and away by Tuesday lunchtime, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is mine. I can do what I want. I can go fishing, play golf. They don't care because my job is to supply that amount. If I do it in 2 days, and that's really odd. It's really odd, but apparently that's what happens in business as well. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
bit of a shock.
Yeah. It does happen in business. I know some directors in some large companies, and they seem to be finished by Wednesday, and we're playing golf on Thursday and Friday, as you say.
Absolutely, and that is weird. That is
Yeah,
very weird. And you need to, if you've been in the industry a long time, you need to make that adjustment. There is a
yeah,
real world out there.
yeah. No,
Sometimes
you're
it's a
right.
bit scary because no one looking after you. You know.
Yeah, you're right, Carl. Last question for me, and it's an interesting one in terms of what it is that you want to promote. But we always give people the opportunity, if you work for your own business, you want to tell us what the business is, or if you've got an organisation or a charity that you want to raise awareness on, because we're going to have lots of people watching the video. So anything that any company, any organisation, anything you want to give a special mention to as a final kind of word before we go off air.
No, I don't think there's. I'm not involved with anything, to be perfectly honest, shamefully, other than animal charities, which isn't really relevant.
Yeah.
No, I think what you're doing is a good thing.
Thank you.
I think it's been a long time coming, and the fact that you're making the face-to-face contact, that's quite refreshing, rather than it just being a faceless company who says, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
This is quite nice. I quite like this.